Greetings, Gamma Joba. Welcome to the Anadromist. This is BYRNE. I see a few of you are there. That's nice. Say hello, somebody. Who have we got here? Nico? Wow. Yeah, it's an old Soviet video. You can find it online. I'm trying to remember what the name of it is, but if you send me an email or send me a notice, I can't do it right now, but I can send you. It's like an hour long, and it's really fascinating old footage of Georgians doing what Georgians do. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's 1969. Looks like some of them are from the Middle Ages. And that is actually true. If you go up into the mountains here to places like Khebsureti or Svaneti or what's the other one? Tusheti. Tusheti has a road that even makes me a little nervous. So, but someday I would like to get up there. Greetings. I don't know who is PCH, but you're welcome. And so what we're going to be doing here is a bit of reminiscing. I'm looking for a few evidently brave souls who would like to come on and discuss your thoughts about 2024 and your hopes and fears for 2025. I'm not proud. I'll take anybody. And there is, if you go to the top of the chat, you'll see I have a yellow highlighted thing for the Anadromist, although mostly I'll be working from the Anadrome. But in there is a link to my StreamYard page. And if you click on that, you can get to the bullpen here and we'll put you on. So think about that. What am I going to do? One of the things I'm going to do when we get to midnight Georgian time, so it's about 10:03 Georgian time right now. When we get to midnight, I've got my traditional things that I do. One is I like to eat one new thing that I haven't had. So I have found this truffle cheese from Holland. It's probably a Gouda that is, or as they say in Holland, Gouda, and but it's got truffle flavor in it, and I really like that. I haven't tried that specific one, so that's new. Here's the thing I'm really excited about. I have never, ever seen this before. This will definitely be memorable. It is walnut spirits. This is an alcoholic drink made from walnuts. Obviously, I'm not going to be downing this. I've got a very little shot glass just to try it. But I'm excited to do that. I haven't even. I've taken the top off, but I haven't opened this yet to smell it. So I'll do that when we get to midnight. So if anyone would like to come on, like I say, the link is at the top in the highlighted Anadromist video. Hey, Papuna. Aha. Gilos after house sells in 2 hours. He knows what I said. Yeah. So I've got music queued up here. I've got some puppets queued up. Mostly it's going to be Georgian-related music and odd little puppet things for us. And I think that'll keep us moving throughout the couple hours here. Meanwhile, I would like to point out, not tonight, but tomorrow night, early in the morning of Tuesday, I have to wake up at 3:30 to get a taxi who will take me out to the airport, and I'm going to spend 2 weeks in Florence, Italy, specifically studying the Renaissance. And that to me is very important. And I've been really preparing myself because, I've made these videos about how to be a good tourist. So I have to try to be one myself. And I don't want to just go there and do the tourist march through all the sites. One of the reasons I'm doing it in early January is because I don't want there to be the crowds that come during the obvious seasons, which would be actually which would have been before Christmas. And it would have been, of course, all during the summer. I hear the summer is just so hot. Paul Vanderklay and I talked a bit about, there's a video about him and I talking about his trip there for the summer. And even then, he got a lot out of it. And I think for Americans who don't get out of the country much, even that would be a very good. But since I'm not one of those, I am out of the country, living here in Tbilisi, Georgia. I find that, I have to be responsible. One of the reasons I'm traveling is because I no longer have the 5-year permit. And so what that means is that my residence permit, what it means is I'm now on the standard 365-day rotation. So that means when you come into the country, your passport is stamped and you're good for 365 days. And I've tested this once, and you can literally go out of the country, step out, step back in, get your passport stamped, and you're good for another 365 days. So I'm coming up to not quite, probably about 10 months on my, since I returned last time. Although, yeah, I'm not even going to try to guess whether my permit, which was good until July, would do me till now. It's just who wants to engage in those questions. So I'm going to be going to get my passport stamp, but since I have to do this now once a year, I have decided to do it right and to go to someplace. And even today I was thinking, a lot of people say, yeah, there's all these videos. See Florence in 2 days. How to spend 1 day in Florence, which to me is, what are you talking about? You can't even get your eyes adjusted in a day, or 2 days or 3 days. And I'm sitting there, I know that's how people travel now. They travel in such a way as, I don't know what they're doing. It's like they're swiping right, or they're just scanning. They're not really seeing. And that's what Rookmacher says at the beginning of the What is Reality series. And remember, I heard that in 1978 first. So I've been pondering this stuff a long time, saying to myself, yeah, I don't want to be one of those people who just is losing reality and jumping through everything. And in fact, when I first went to Europe, I started doing that. I had a Eurail pass that didn't kick in yet because I was in the UK and it didn't work for the UK. But I was doing this thing where once every 3 days I had to be in a new youth hostel because they would kick you out. And I started thinking about that. And I said, I don't want to do that. So I ended up just staying in Switzerland and France for a year. This was before they were all on the Schengen group, which is one of the reasons I don't like the Schengen thing, because why can't we stay longer? If you go from one country to another. But so what I'm doing is I'm going to Florence, and I was just thinking today, why am I only doing 2 weeks? I should have done 3, because it wouldn't be that much more money. Most of the money comes in the plane and of course the hotel, but I'm not paying that much for the plane, and I'm not paying that much for the hotel. It's very budget travel. So let's see who else is here. Tayo, good to see you. If you want to come on, Tayo, the link is at the top of the chat where you see the yellow highlighted Anadromist. If you just click that, you'll be able to come in. And yes, you're right, Nico. It's chasing reality is what we're doing. And we're not doing something. I mean, this is what our lives have become. Watch another video. And I'm not speaking from some high position of someone who has mastered all of this stuff. It sucks me in just like it sucks us all in. And I've been thinking, why do we watch video after video? We watch them because we hear people talking. That's why you're listening to me right now, is because I'm talking. And so I think that I think it's going to be a very interesting time. I can feel, and I've had this feeling before, that some idea is going to break through while I'm there. I don't know exactly what, but I remember there was a trip in 1993, and I went to California where I grew up, and had all these experiences of seeing things I hadn't seen since I was a child. And then there was a big thing, and I felt like, oh, but there's more. And then I got to New York City again, back home, and in a couple of days, some things started happening with other people, and I remember just having this thing. It's like I said to myself, it's almost like these people don't live in time. And then I went, oh, that is it. They actually don't consider time as something important to do. So, like I say, if anyone wants to come aboard, the link is up where you see the yellow Anadromist sign. I am working on the through the Anadrome for talking to you most of the time here. Okay, so while I'm waiting, we'll come back. There's lots more to talk about, but I thought we'd do that. And if anyone feels like buying me a meal in Florence, which has some of the best food in the world, and since I am going on the cheap, it would be nice to get, a good meal or two. I keep looking at them going like, I wonder how much that costs, But if you feel like donating, you can do it through the usual PayPal or GoFundMe links below. So let's see. Let me play another thing here. This is a really interesting video. And this is a guy named Barry Purvis up in the north of England did a short 5-minute animation piece on Shakespeare. And the concept is Shakespeare comes up, he's standing on the stage. There's like a normal theater director sitting in the audience, and the theater director is like, okay, it's your turn. Perform, show me, why you're good and whatnot. And then what Shakespeare then goes to do is to demonstrate all of his works. And it's a fascinating piece. And the more you know about Shakespeare, the more you can identify what Shakespeare is doing. It's only 5 minutes long, but it's simply called Next. Let's watch that. Meanwhile, think about coming on. I will be with you. Hey, James, I see you. 20th Century Music and Arts. Do you feel like coming on and talking? Just do so. There is the link at the top where the bright yellow sign says the Anadromist. There is the link that'll take you right here if anyone wants to come aboard. Meanwhile, Shakespeare is next.
Lip sync.
Next. Next. Lord, what fools these mortals be. Next!
So there you are. Pretty interesting. I can only get about half of them through the symbolism, although there's a list somewhere of all of the what all of them mean. But it's quite clever. Like I say, you have to really know your Shakespeare to get as many of those as you can. But maybe a little more than half, but still. Okay, who we got here? Is that Nick? Okay, I'm going to bring you on in a moment. I got to blow my nose first. Hold on. Just a minute. Okay, Nick. Welcome.
Hey,
So where are you?
I'm in Argentina.
Aha, you are my Argentinian. So is there more than one? Maybe. But yeah, well, good to have you. What time is it there for you?
Oh, it's 3:19.
Okay. So you have plenty of time before your New Year's, which is why I did this. If I was in America, I wouldn't do it because Europe is already dead and America is already is too close to everyone's time and nobody would be watching. Whereas if I do this now, everyone from earlier in the day can go, oh, I want to come on.
It's almost New Year over there, right?
Yeah. We're about an hour and 40 minutes away. Is that right? Yeah. So, so how is life in Argentina now with Milei and all of the things he's doing? Does it feel like things are changing, or?
Yeah. It's Argentina has been pretty hectic recently. Although now things are weirdly quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, things are changing. They are. Mostly the most novel thing to happen recently, it's how quiet things are. Usually there is a protest, there is something going on.
Right.
Uh,
Who does most of the protesting? The left-wing people or the right-wing people or all sorts of people?
the left-wing people.
Yeah.
Really, we don't really have this kind of strong party system.
Right.
It's more like class struggle,
Right.
stuff like that.
Right.
Um,
So how was your 2024?
oof, kind of crazy. I been working on something that I had a little project. Some time ago there was this energy for comic books. I'm kind of like a
Okay.
comic book artist by night. By day I'm just a coder.
Is there any place online where we could look at your comics or your art?
Well, there is a place online. It's I'm on Instagram. It's
Okay.
Aquadox. It's not very Anglo friendly to pronounce.
I
I need to
understand.
change that. But the thing is, I was working on this project because I wanted to publish some books, but in
Yep.
the end, it didn't. It didn't work out.
It didn't work out. He's
Yeah.
typed the name in the link under Nico here. So, are you a Nick, a Nicholas, a Nico? What's the proper way to call you?
I mean, they are all the same name, really. I'm okay with Anglo people calling me Nick.
Right. Well, if
Maybe
Nico, I'll call
Russians
you
can
Nico.
call me Nikolai. I don't know.
Okay. We'll do that.
In Spanish, it's Nicolas.
Right.
But I like that the name changes from region to region.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's interesting to me being in Georgia. Of course, one thing that's common in almost any culture that has been Christian for a while is they have variations on all the biblical names. So it's very interesting for me to David here, David in Spanish is David, but then nobody calls. It's rare that someone uses David. It's often Dato.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
and go ahead.
if we say Saint David, it's Saint Dato.
Exactly. Or let's see, what is the church up here is called Mama Daviti. Mama actually in Georgia, and I think it's the only country in the world where mother is Deda and father is Mama.
What?
Exactly.
What?
Every other culture in the world. There's weird things like this in all sorts of cultures. Like in Bulgaria, I think they're the only culture in the world when you know, when I say yes, I do this. When I say no, I do this. They do it exactly the opposite. It's like no, yes, 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 no, no. But here it's like mama is father and dada sounds like daddy or something is mother. So it's kind of funny. But
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. It's kind of like the Italians. I think they say ciao when they say hello, but here
yeah,
ciao is a goodbye.
well, of course, everywhere else in the world, we use if we want to say ciao, we use it at the end to say goodbye. But it's their word. But they do it, I guess, like the Hawaiians do aloha. You know, it's just like a beginning and an end, and just say it. Yeah.
I didn't know I didn't know they used the same one from the beginning
Yeah,
to the
yeah.
end.
And aloha means a lot more than hello and goodbye. I think it means something like respect. I've heard some other people say it's like peace on you or something, but it's complicated. But in old ancient Hawaiian culture, you just always said aloha, you know, so whenever anything was happening.
Yeah,
So are you in Buenos Aires?
yeah, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
always
everything
a very
around here.
interesting city. Argentina is like a weird mirror of part of America. In North America,
Yeah,
you know, in the USA, and a lot of people don't think about it much. But in fact, I believe there was never a very big native population there. Am I right in that?
it's mostly
It's
arid
like
lands
Europeans.
and grasslands.
Yeah.
So when the Spanish arrived, it was mostly nomadic people, and
Right.
nomad they don't have these huge populations,
Right.
and they can leave a place just like that.
Right.
So there wasn't much of anything, but which was a real problem for the Spanish, because their idea was, we're going to go in there, we're going to conquer the land, and then the native peoples are going to be our serfs, and they are going to cultivate the land for us. And then they came in here, they conquered, and they tried to turn the people into serfs, and they went away.
Right. Because they were nomadic. So.
Yeah. And then some Portuguese merchants came in, and they started making money by buying and selling. And then all of the Spanish lords
Mm-hmm.
became poorer than the Portuguese merchants. It's been a problem ever since.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, I guess somebody saw all that grass and said, "Oh, we need to raise cows here." You know, which is a
Yeah,
good.
basically.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Chile and Argentina are two very interesting countries that, like I say, they're almost strange mirror reflections of the North, but they're just, you know, it's under the Spanish umbrella rather than the English
Yeah,
or French umbrella. And
yeah.
but we
And there's
don't.
also a strange influence between the two.
Mhm.
I mean, between the North America and South
Right.
America.
Yeah. Well, there was a time when Argentina was it was considered the country that was going to develop the most. And then something happened in the middle of the 20th century, I guess, where You know, the just political and economic chaos just started to grow, and it's been going back and forth. And now people are saying maybe there's hope for Argentina now.
Yeah. Let's see how long this thing lasts. Yeah. It's an interesting history, honestly. And the most interesting thing to me is the thing that it gets kind of forgotten, that for the longest time, first there was a really strong relation between the country and England and France, not Spain, England and France, and later on also with the United States. Apparently the economies were so closely linked that when you guys had the Great Depression, it hit us too.
My friend James here just made a comment. You know, they were expecting Argentina to be as prosperous as Australia or Canada, and it just didn't quite happen that way. Which is, like I say, Australian history is quite. It's hard for us to understand it. You know, the people from the north, because it's just a different world, and yet it is so similar. You know, there's so many similarities. And I did what was it, a series on American Gothic culture, which is not the same as goth. It has to do with the decayed image of America, and I talked about the art and the movies and the music. And when I did this was a series of essays I did on my the Anadromous Life blog site. I had a group from Argentina called Fandango call me and say, "That's what we're doing. You finally told us what we're doing." You know, because they were doing some sort of version of that, but it was more of a decayed version of Argentinian culture. And I thought, oh, okay, that's really interesting.
Yeah. You recommended that to me. I went there and listened to them.
Have you seen them?
Not live.
Not in person, but
right, not in person.
Yeah, I just thought it just an interesting idea, and yeah. So,
Yeah.
do you have any specific thoughts about where you would like things to go in 2024?
In 2025.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I thought it was 2023. So 2025.
Yeah. I've been kind of looking around and going around in circles, trying to find where next to move on. I've been investigating a lot. I'm interested in art in the Middle Ages.
Okay.
So I guess we can all have like I would say, if you're hanging around here, a similar objective is, I don't know, I feel like modern art, the art that we are so used to, the kind of high and pop art, it's kind of hit a big stopping point, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And the question is, what to do next?
Let me put a couple of words in your ear. And these aren't necessarily trends I find that are the best, but they are what is happening in some places that's different than what has been happening. And one is called pop surrealism. And if you look up these two phrases, pop surrealism and lowbrow art, you know, and both of these are what I would say are things that are beyond the postmodern. They're in a different zone. And what's happened in the major galleries and things is that, for instance, here in Georgia, they have an amazing tradition of art. And nobody knows anything about it, but I find it really fascinating. But it's an amazing tradition up to the point where they entered the global mainstream. And then at that point, they're just doing postmodern art, you know, and so it's just all these kind of abstract things reconfigured and whatnot. And it doesn't look any different than the art of any other culture. Whereas they had, even through the Soviet era, they had this very specific style. And I plan on doing on the Anadrome sometime, kind of an introduction to Georgian art. But one of the things I'll be doing when I'm in visiting Florence is I will be really looking at the art. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is walk around with a camera through all the museums and just try to do anything like that. Because I mean, if I did anything like that, it would be to capture the crowds, not the art. Because you can't see art when there's all these people in front of you. And the truth is, all of these things have all been photographed much better than I can photograph them. So there's no point in doing that. But I have been researching a lot more about Renaissance art before I go. And so I'm getting myself to be intelligent enough to see something while I'm there. So I'm not going, you know, what most people when you travel are told to do is, you know, go to the Uffizi Gallery, go see Botticelli, go see Leonardo, go see Michelangelo. But I'm saving those for the second week. And the reason for it is because this is what burns people out, is to try to see too much at once. So I'm starting with the Archaeological Museum and looking at the Etruscans and, you know, who was there first. And then I'm looking at the churches and looking at things like that. I've also got 3 different friends I'm meeting there who are all Italian, or one friend is Italian Swiss. So I'm putting things more in context, because I think that's one of the problems with tourism is we don't see anything. And so, and then there is a free day for the Uffizi Gallery, but I'm not going to bite. What I'm going to do is use that day to just walk around and not really look at anything, but just get an idea of where everything is located. And then I have 2 days where I have tickets in the next week, where I will go at a certain time and go in and spend time there, you know, and hopefully it won't be super crowded, but I'm sure there'll still be lots of people. But I've seen photos of the gallery, the museum in the summer. It's just like, oh, I could never go there then.
Yeah, when you have these huge crowds, no, for Leon.
No, you're supposed to think about what you're looking at. You're supposed to let it wash over you, and, you know, to try to get some sort of feeling from it. And you can't do that when there's, you know, people standing in front of you taking selfies in front of the birth of Venus. You know, you're not going to see I have an idea that we see not only the image we're looking at, but all the things that are surrounding it. So right now, I'm not simply seeing you or an image of me, but what I'm also seeing is I'm seeing all the weird little things on the computer. I'm seeing the stuff that I have on the StreamYard link. I'm also keeping one eye on what's going on over here on the chat section. And so we see all of these things. And so when you're in a room, and I've done this in the Mona Lisa, I knew better than to even try to look at the Mona Lisa. Fortunately, I'd seen it once before. But last time, it was like 2018, I think it was, I went to the Louvre. And I got there on a free day. It was already completely crowded. That's the problem with free days. It's like everybody says, oh, it's free, let's go. And literally, while I decided to take videos not of the Mona Lisa, but of everyone else looking at the Mona Lisa. And I do have a video of this somewhere. And
the funniest thing is all the people with their phone.
Oh, yeah. And right up front, there was some Asian folks, a guy and a girl, and he had his selfie stick, and he was trying to pretend like he was alone with the Mona Lisa. He and his girl were alone with it. And I was going like, you know, and I just sit there and I say, why are people looking at this? They don't know. All they know is, you know, it's like someone says you should do this, so they're doing this. Someone else has an Instagram page with selfies of themselves doing something similar. And so we just, we follow it like sleepwalkers. And I think that's part of what we have to break out of, is the sleepwalking of materialism. Really causes us to sleepwalk. And it also puts in our minds the idea that all of this stuff we're doing is just stuff. It's like, really, sex is super casual. Why? Because we're just, we're atoms and chemicals and DNA. That's all we are.
Yeah. But that's the thing that people are looking for in a way. I think a lot of people go on those vacations to kill the thinking, to stop themselves from thinking. They can't cope with reality. So there's a need for constant. There has to be constantly something to be distracted from, because otherwise you're going to start to think, and you can't have that. So it's one vacation after the other. And if you can't afford a vacation after the other, then you
Well, it
use
does
something
make
else.
me wonder what people are doing when they work for a year. They save up money, go away for a couple of weeks, go here, and then come back. It's almost like a break, a glitch in reality.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the things that I'm slowly working towards doing is a long series on, I call it tourism and reality. And one of the things I realized I needed to do, besides dealing with all the issues related to tourism and travel, I need to deal with another issue which doesn't seem related, but it's the issue that kind of is underneath it. For instance, whenever I meet people who are from, some small place in the middle of the United States, some little town, or even a medium-sized city, a couple 100,000 people, but no one's ever visited, Dubuque, Lincoln, Nebraska, all these places, they're just names. No one ever visits these places, but even small little villages or towns. And the thing that everyone says and I've met these people when they visited Alaska, or when I lived in New York, is they all say there's nothing to do there. And I always wonder what that means. Why is this so boring? How is everything empty there? And yet at the same time, then they will do something like go to a big city like New York. They will, and they'll say, yeah, now things are happening. And you ask, what is happening? So you're going to clubs? Is that what's happening? Are you going to art museums? Is that what's happening? Are you just drifting here, but it's more exciting? Is that what's happening? And so the question is, how did everything get so empty? And it is.
It's interesting that I went on a vacation once. I usually don't go on vacations. For the most part, when I was a kid, I went because I went with my parents. But when I got older, I didn't go because really it never did much for me. But on a few occasions, on one occasion, I went to the United States on a vacation. Because my parents wanted to go and they don't speak much English. So we went to Miami and then New York. And we stayed on Manhattan. And the thing about the little I could see of New York is it's really similar to Buenos Aires. And I find that really interesting because we were staying on the south side, and I went out of the hotel and there were these guys carrying rolls of cloth from one store to another. And when I saw those guys, that's just like back home. There is this part of Buenos Aires that it's the really central part. It's too dirty to be comfortable to be around. It's full of not the kind of fancy stores that you like to go to, but more of the selling on bulk kind of stores. The places where you don't want to hang out. It's the part of Buenos Aires that I never like to go to. when I was in that part of New York, it's just like home.
Well, you know what's funny is there are people here who like to go to places like Berlin so they can take part in the club scene there. And so there's a bit of a club scene here too, and they say, "Oh, you should come. Tbilisi has a really great club scene." And I'm going like, they're the same. And I just saw a documentary recently about how cool and hip Berlin is these days, and it showed like, and punk rock is still alive here. And so they show this band, all girls, going, ah, you know, and I'm sitting there going like, yeah, I've seen that. And then I look at the audience, what they're doing, and they're doing exactly what audiences have been doing in these clubs since the 80s, which is to say they're acting bored. They're just nodding their heads. I'm sitting there going like, no, this is not a hip new place. This is like the brave old world. You know, it's not, we're not developing anything here. We're just, and I've had this revelation several times where I'd go to something. I really love to visit music in different places, but you know, you go to a club and it's just like you're sitting there going like, I could be in New York City doing this. It's the same thing. So, take a break right now, and I'm going to play a little something. If you want to stick around, stick around. But I'd like to invite anyone else who'd like to come aboard. Remember, the link to get on is up above at the top of the chat where there's a bold yellow highlight, and in that there is a link that'll bring you right here. Meanwhile, Nico, I will be back, and let's see, what should we play here? Okay, this is interesting. This is from George. No, let's do this since I've got you here. This will be interesting for you. This is one of the things I really like is primitive cinema. Primitive cinema is everything up until about, I don't know, 1915 or so. So from the 1890s to about 1915 is the era of primitive cinema. And one of the masters of early animation was a Spaniard named Segundo de Chomón. And this is a piece of his called Metamorphoses, and it's about 4.5 minutes long. It's really fascinating because he's clearly watched the early movies of Frenchman Georges Méliès. And what he's doing though is he's interpreting all these things, but there's also this very odd animation as well. It's just, when I watch these kinds of things, I get like so many ideas. This is what to me provokes imagination, whereas I think a lot of modern cinema and franchise entertainment in particular takes imagination away. So let's watch Metamorphoses by Segundo de Chomón. We'll be back in about 4 minutes or so. So there you are.
Oh,
Segundo de Chamon. Yeah, I have a whole DVD of his work. It's really fascinating stuff. So,
okay.
just a
Wait a
reminder, you
minute.
can come on if you want. Let me know. So, that's one thing I do to keep my imagination going. Is that's one of the reasons I work with puppets and such, is because it gives me a pool of references that most people don't have.
Mm.
And most people today are so caught. I mean, it's really strange. Speaking of strange people trying not to be caught, we're going to bring on James from 20th Century Music and Arts. How you doing, James?
Hey, how's it going, Vern?
Hey,
Doing
Hi,
all right.
Nico. How you
And
doing?
a good end of the year to you up in Canada. So we've
Oh,
got
thanks.
a lot of the entire North and South America represented here.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, we go from the top to the bottom. That's right.
yeah,
We just need a few people from the sort of middle sections.
yeah. So what do you think? How's your 2024 been?
Oh, it's not been bad. It's been pretty good. I mean, the end of the year, I started to get a little boost on the videos, so we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, your channel, 20th Century Music and Arts, for those of you who want to know, you just did a couple of very interesting videos on dissonant and atonal guitar playing, and suddenly you were found by, I don't know who found you, but somebody somehow uh, you went from getting a few hundred to 1,000 or more. How many is that one video up to now?
One video's over 20,000 now. The one,
Really?
yeah, over
Wow, good
20,000.
grief!
So
So
I've actually, I mean, they've put me now into. I'm still waiting, but they put me into. Now they say I can monetize, but I don't know. I think I hit on something.
yeah,
I
you
know,
hit some nerve there.
yeah,
Evidently, there's a
and
lot of guitar players.
well, I'm not a. I mean, I'm not a music theorist, but I was
Right,
looking at music that was sort of off time, different, and noisy, which is kind of the stuff I've always been attracted to.
right.
And I wanted a list of different sort of guitar players and different genres that do that, that are not playing sort of conventional blues rock or whatever. And so I just listed a bunch of them that I found interesting, and then it seemed to take off. Now the comments, it's got this wide range of different people with different opinions who were all
Right.
sharing.
Yeah, I
And
read a bunch.
I don't know if it was just because I say, hey, just list people that you think should be there.
Right,
And so then what I did was a follow-up video where I took some of those that were on the list. I couldn't take everybody because there were hundreds.
right,
And then I just made a follow-up video of here's the ones that you selected, and that one's done fairly well.
right.
So hopefully I can just keep growing it, the channel. I have other ideas that I want to get into as well. Hopefully more discussions with you. Even something, just watching that piece before, looking at the power of silent movies, which is not something I'm very knowledgeable in, but I would like to learn more. That might be a good, interesting.
I know. I have all these weird subjects that I don't hardly ever talk about silent movies. And part of it is my library is back in Alaska, but yeah, if you want information, I'm the person.
Okay, that's cool. We could have conversations about that. Yeah, just looking into. I mean, I'm sticking more with music
Well,
here.
yeah.
I got a
Right
few.
now, your biggest question is, what are you going to follow all this up with? Since you've hit on a vein, you know, has it spilled over into any of your other videos?
A little bit. So I at the last video I released, I said please check out my other videos. So I am getting some more
Right,
views.
right,
The one on the 60s, underground music from the 60s, seems to be getting the most
good,
views out of my older videos.
right.
So I'm hoping, I want to look at a couple of individual bands, one from the 90s and one from the 70s.
Hmm.
I'm going to analyze the careers of those two bands.
Right.
I want
Well,
to,
I think you hit on a nerve when you started doing stuff like the scene in Cleveland in
yeah,
the '70s, and also some of the other people. And so I think, well, you need to make sure that you're also putting out because I know you like to do movies and particularly horror movies and stuff. You need to keep putting those out, but kind of overlap them so that if
yeah. I guess with movies, I am too kind of specialized. There's other movies I like outside the horror genre. I just find myself watching mostly horror movies and old horror
that's
movies.
okay. That's okay.
But
it's fine. We all have our the things we're attracted to.
yeah. So anyway, I do want to explore a bit more of like dissonance, noise. I mean, in the rock setting, that's sort of
Right.
my area of specialty. So I
Yeah.
want to kind of even that challenge that you gave me. I've been racking my brain because I'm thinking, oh man, Byrne's gonna have a super variety of different artists from different genres. And I'm thinking I might be kind of mostly in the rock genre. So it'll be interesting discussion anyway.
That's all right.
I'm trying to go through see if I can expand outside of that as well. But
yeah.
Anyway.
What James and I are referring to is that we discussed he's been doing a lot of music stuff on his channel as well as horror films and stuff. But I thought, why don't we have kind of a showdown of who can pull out the stranger music? And so he brings 5 pieces, I bring 5 pieces, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm immediately thinking of like Taiwanese cover versions of all sorts of weird songs from the 1960s, or just this. In my mind, immediately goes to, well, what about that group in Kuwait in the 80s, or
Yeah.
But also, I do think about weird kinds of music from the rock world as well. But you seem to be doing quite well on that, so I don't want to compete directly, shall we say.
Yeah, and I might even have a couple of like I had this thing on hair metal, but it was more about music conformity.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to analyze, because I was actually, if you watch the whole video, I was saying, well, hair metal had all its problems and I was critical of it. The sort of corporate rock that came out in the 90s in some ways was worse, because at least hair metal came from this, sleazy LA culture, but it had a culture. All the bands going, there was no culture there.
No, well, yeah.
None.
And of course, what happened to music? What happened, Nico? What happened to Argentinian music in the 21st century? Are you just getting Rihanna and Taylor Swift and all of that stuff, or is there a vibrant music scene?
It's like we're frozen in time. It's a little bit eerie. The last bands who got big, it happened in the 90s, and they've been big ever since. And just a few years ago, there was an incident because the concert was so big that a lot of people got hurt. And the band, it's a band that was established when I was little. So it seems like ever since we've been stuck on the same thing.
There is an awful lot of repetition out there. And like I said, James, did you hear me telling him about, I saw this documentary about how hip and cool Berlin was. And I was like, and I watched the documentary, and it's like the same people in the clubs doing the same kind of standing around bored.
Yeah, well, that might be a whole other video about why I hate electronic dance music.
Right. Well, this wasn't electronic. This was punks. But of course, they were saying, and it's all girls. And I'm sitting there going like, it's been done before.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of this stuff, there is flogging a dead horse culture.
Yeah, I got the feeling that Berlin is not the hip spot they're saying it is. It's kind of like that the rebels there just haven't gotten the message yet.
And that's so interesting, because Germany in the early 70s had the most interesting music scene with the stuff that was happening there. It's like the sort of experimentation of psychedelia had not, it sort of had gone away in a lot of American and British music, but it was still very much present in Germany. So that's where you get these really, really unique bands that were totally ahead of their time. Can, Faust, Neu, and numerous others. But
well, before I went to Berlin and Germany in 2022, I decided to watch some videos about new German music, so I could go around and look and see if I could find some CDs or something of that music. And I watched it. It was like the 10 top videos of 2022. And as I'm watching it, I'm going like, okay, that's just imitation American rap. That's imitation that's just dumb dance music. Interesting singer. She's from Norway. And then there was a Rammstein song. And I said, okay, that's the only one that actually sounds German. And when I got there, though, I did find there's this great company out of Germany called Bear Family. Do you know about them?
no, haven't heard of them.
Yeah, they've put out some of the best reissues of older music on earth. And they put out multiple CD sets. They have there's a set of 4, about, I think it's 2 discs on each one of the German, it's just called Krautrock.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's another one that they put out on Neue Deutsche Welt, which is the German New Wave music.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yes, that's interesting. There is a kind of, unfortunately, a monoculture that's kind of getting created globally. I mean, well, you do have independent music scenes, but then with a lot of genres, you start getting the typical band of that genre, regardless of what geographic location you are in the world. And that's an unfortunate thing.
Mm-hmm.
What was cool was when something like psychedelic music in the late 60s went to different parts of the world. Everybody put their own spin on it. So you go to someplace like Turkey and you hear the psychedelic bands of the late 60s, they're very unique because they would maybe get one record. Yeah. And then the bands would listen to that one record and they go, okay, let's put our own spin on it. It wasn't like you just inundated with this constant global MTV type of culture.
Well, now with our streaming and YouTube and such, it's kind of like you've walked into a store where there's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pieces of candy of different types. And so people go, oh, I'll try one of these, I'll try one of these, I'll try one of these. And there's no cultural focus anymore. Does that strike you, Nico? Something?
Yeah. There is a lack of focus. I've seen recently, I don't know if it has to do with a lack of, I can't think of the word in English, of making something unique. Recently, I came to notice this dynamic where apparently now a lot of Japanese things have been becoming kind of popular on series, the kind of Korean stuff.
Yeah.
And I came to find out that a lot of the Japanese stuff that I liked, and I thought they were so good, they were naked steals from American cultural exports. So I began to look more into it, and it kind of turns out that the Japanese are not very original. That's it, original. I couldn't remember that word.
Originality, yes.
Yeah, and then it kind of threw my presuppositions into question, because I don't think that a lot of the things that they made were good, but they were not very original at all. So I started to question. I'm not so sure that it has to do with something like that. In Argentina, in the 70s, there was a huge explosion of music and artistic output. And it was mostly just copying the Americans, the North Americans.
Right. I mean, you did have people like Astor Piazzolla still doing kind of artistic versions of the tango and things like that. But those became like classical music or very refined jazz kind of things. And
there was a reaction against it. The old heads of Tango, they didn't like it. They did
Right.
not approve.
Right. Well, that's one reason I like that group Fandango, is because they do use accordions, they do use brass instruments and stuff, but it doesn't sound like the past. It sounds like I say, it's this American Gothic style, which, you know, Nick Cave, Tom Waits do variations on it, but also people like 16 Horsepower or Reverend Glass Eyes. I need to do a video on this someday, because I've talked about it all in a series of essays on my essay site. But yeah, hold on just a minute. I want to see who else is out there. Say hello out there if you're watching, and like I've said, if you want to come aboard, I could accommodate one more person. So if you're interested in doing that, let me know. The link, if you want to come aboard, is at the top of the chat, and it's highlighted in yellow where it says the Anadromist. Everything else that I'm doing is for the Anadrome there. So if you wish to come aboard, do so. And we are talking about, I guess, the future and the past of music here, which is something worth talking about. I mean, part of the big question is, where do we go? You know, and I think that I actually think we are at a point where there's so much frustration that something is starting to happen. That's, you know, I think that as not just being optimistic, but I see something. I just feel something, and we will see. I mean, one of the reasons I'm going to see Renaissance art in Florence is because I feel like we need to understand history. And I can't put that on anyone else. I have to understand history. So, you know, you hear these words, the Renaissance era or the World War II, or, you know, all these aspects of history. But we aren't living in a bubble. We are influenced by all of those things. So I am going to play my book pitch, just to get this out of the way. We'll be back in about 2.5 minutes. It's here, rescued from Alaska. This year, my first ever book, 3 Motions. Motions is an old English word for puppet shows. Indeed, there are 3 puppet plays here written by myself for my Alaskan puppetry classes, including my versions of the medieval classic Everyman, cleverly entitled Every Puppet, and even better, my retelling of the Faust legend, updated for the 21st century, also very cleverly, with a special introductory essay on the meaning of puppetry. Now, are these 50-page booklets physically worth the $25 price? No. But this isn't about material possessions. This is about being part of this odd channel and whatever it is we're doing here, trying to understand things. And these little booklets are unique. Each one is numbered and signed by yours truly. When they sell out, they are gone. I will never reprint them. Special deals if you want multiple copies for a production of your own. Just let me know you're doing it. That's $25 for the USA, Canada, Mexico, most of Europe. There may be some corners, like, I don't know, Russia, etc., and might require some extra money, as would Asia, Latin America, and Africa, or Tonga, or Australia probably. I'll have to add another $5 or so, depending on where you're from. But part of the money goes to my assistants who are shipping these from me from their respective American and European locations. Use the links below, PayPal, GoFundMe, and make sure you add the word book, B-O-O-K, book, to let me know this is not just a normal contribution to the channel, which you can still make. This book will not last long. Help me keep the channel alive. I get no other funding except from you, the viewer. I don't get it from YouTube. I don't get sponsorships. It's up to you. If you appreciate what I do on this channel, get a book. It's a great way to remember what this channel was about, and it'll be something unique because they're all signed and numbered. You'll notice I said there what the channel was about. Not that I'm planning on quitting the channel, but everything turns into the past at some point. So I always think in time. So we had someone, let's see, a couple of thoughts here. Someone said maybe the problem is globalism, but it's hard to tell. I think it's more of a philosophical problem, and that globalism itself is just a spin-off of one of these things, because I think it goes back to, well, it goes back to the Renaissance, it goes back to the Enlightenment, it goes back to the Industrial Age, it goes to the point where people started saying everything is matter. And so this is all just stuff, and it doesn't matter what you do with it. And then eventually you come to people saying, well, if it doesn't matter, it's all a social construct.
Mhm.
Meanwhile, they just, there's a lot of people saying, so let's just make money while we can. You need to brand yourself, et cetera, et cetera. So, okay, I'll let you stay in bed, Meow. So,
I heard recently on a podcast saying that Montesquieu had written about that, that the way that this new system was going to be established was through fashion and commerce. And he wanted people to be focused on material things because they were more malleable. He wanted basically religious conviction, this kind of hard line, or that's what he was saying. I wonder if it's related.
yeah.
That's
Um,
one thing that's interesting there that you've brought up is fashion. I've always been fascinated why people want to change fashion constantly. So and it's very interesting too, because I remember in the last 3 decades of the 20th century, it seemed like the fashions were a reaction to the previous decade. But that didn't quite happen in the same way in the 21st century. So, for example, if you walked around in 1983 with bell bottoms, you would be socially ostracized. If you walked around with a Michael Jackson jacket and acid wash jeans in 1993, you'd be socially ostracized. But what causes that change, and what causes that desire for conformity? Like, I don't know. Like, it seems interesting. There's this like production of clothes. Okay, we've got to make new clothes, but why do we decide that our tie is thin in one era and then our tie has to be fat in another era? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, there's another thing related to this, is that the speed of the change of fashion has accelerated quite heavily.
Oh yeah.
So one of the big, I don't want to turn this into a big fashion thing, although I've got tons of thoughts on it, and I've been thinking about these things as well. But one of the big moments was during the 60s. If you remember the way early James Bond looks, that kind of suit and tie, really this was the modern man. This was, and there was an idea, if you look at Frank Sinatra and the Rat Pack, if you look at Playboy magazine, there was an idea of what sophistication was supposed to be. And, women wore these mini skirts and they had these hair. But then now this whole thing is actually part of the fashion trends reacting to each other, going way back into history. Then come the hippies. And the hippies say, oh, we're not part of fashion history anymore. They are, but that's what they're saying. And so they suddenly reject all of that stuff, which then creates a big problem. So the fashion world is creating this illusion of what you're supposed to be like. So it was kind of going slowly. Their reaction to the hippie movement was to kind of throw their hands up, try to adopt aspects of it. But what they really did was they created a whole new thing that was, a lot of fashion went to what's called off-the-shelf stuff. So it went to the leisure wear, what we now sometimes call athleisure wear.
Yeah.
It went to all of these new synthetic fabrics. It went to things, and things start speeding up and speeding up. What you're describing about in the beginning of the 80s, late 90s, or beginning of the 90s and such, are things getting tweaked about those. But now we have these engines of fashion that are literally moving so fast. Of course, the only people it really matters for are people who watch these things online. So if you're watching TikTok videos, which I don't, apart from watching people talking about them, I don't watch them, then this is just moving so fast. And so you now have fashion companies like Shein in China who literally have hundreds and hundreds of new garments every day, and they make them for disposability.
Yeah.
And it's almost all synthetic, and it's one of the biggest sources of trash and
Pollution,
environmental damage now, because what do you do with all this synthetic clothing? It's not like when you had cotton clothes or wool clothes, they would just rot and you'd go, okay, hopefully the dyes used weren't poisonous. But now you've got all of this stuff, and there are places, I've seen piles of these things in different countries that, these places like H&M or I can't remember all the names right now.
Bangladesh has got huge issues pollution-wise.
Exactly.
So
we've created this weird thing, but it all goes back to what Hans Ruckmacher talks about in the What is Reality video. And that is to say, well, who are we really? Why do we crave change all the time? And I think Jordan Peterson makes a good case for we do need change, and at the same time we need stability, and those two things fight each other. And that's where we are. Let's see. Yes. Lachlan mentioned style from Robin in the Seven Hoods movie from the I think that's late 50s, early 60s. And someone was saying, oh, Happy New Year, Lily Patinka. Oh, that's a nice name, from London. And we are going to kind of, we're doing good. We're in my 11 o'clock hour here. It's 11:18. There is a new year to get to. And just to remind everyone, I do have I'm going to go on solo view for a moment here. I'll be right back with you two. I do have coming up, my new thing of the year is this weird walnut spirit. I literally have no idea. I've taken the wrapping off, but I haven't smelled it yet because I'm going to save that for online. And also I've got some cheese here that is truffle cheese. It's Dutch. Anyway, but I'm going to try a bit of that, and we'll see what happens. But by the way, if anyone else wants to come aboard, the link to come on is at the top of this chat, and it's where you see the words "the Anadromous" highlighted in bright yellow, and the link is in that line right there. And feel free. I've got a little more room for more balls of people here. But yeah, the question is, what are we? And that is to say, are we these creatures? Why are we so susceptible to the new thing all the time? And we're especially susceptible when we're in our teen and early 20 years. But that doesn't mean that, I remember the day, it was in the 90s. I went to Yosemite National Park with my mother and my stepfather, and it was completely crowded with people. We did have a place to stay, and but there were a lot of people who were older there, and including my mother and my stepfather, who were dressed in the super casual American stuff. And then I saw this one couple who, the woman had a kind of an old-fashioned dress, and the guy had a black suit with a tie. And I looked at them and I said, I remember those people. All old people used to look like that. They all maintain their dignity. And now I'm looking around and they're wearing sweatpants and t-shirts and saying, I'm stupid.
Yeah.
And, how did that happen? So it's not just the young people who are being dragged along in all of this. You know, and I have thought about these things for a long time. I don't have a good answer, but I do know that in order to get any kind of answer, we need to raise the questions, which is what isn't happening well enough right now.
Some time ago, I found a picture of some workers from a workshop at some metropolitan city, black and white. They came out of the shop to take the picture, so they were all dirty from the work, and they were all wearing button-up shirts and pants.
Mm-hmm.
That it wasn't a formal occasion; they were just working. But
Yeah.
now those things clothes are supposed to be formal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's a global thing. When I lived in South Korea in the early 2000s, men would wear suits like everywhere. Even guys driving the taxis would have shirt and ties on. I think it's changed now. But when I was living there, there was a formality that I just did not see in North America. And I remember seeing this as well when I went to the United Kingdom, because that's where my parents are from, in the mid 80s, and meeting a lot of older relatives, and they all dressed very formally too.
Mm-hmm.
And that's also disappeared as well. So this is an interesting global phenomenon.
Right, right. Yeah, and what's interesting here is when I look at, for instance, women here, the younger women in their teens and 20s are dressed more like their global counterparts. But an interesting thing happens when the girls get into their 30s. They start dressing like women in their 30s, which doesn't happen in America. You know, it's in America, it's like you can wear yoga pants until you're 50. You know, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, there's definitely a thing where you would think people start to take on these sort of symbols of adulthood. And when I and it's the most disturbing thing is when you get like you see those customers at Walmart that are all basically just wearing pajama pants. It's like, we're just not going to make an effort anymore. And not that I'm saying everyone should wear a 3-piece suit, but just pajama pants that are hanging down is like, okay, can we at least somewhat make an effort?
Well, it's that also there's the only sense of style is coming from a couple of sources. One is, of course, online. That's the major source for most people. And the other one is, if you've got a more elite culture, you've got these people who make things that are much more expensive. And there's not much overlap between those two anymore. Although you can buy, $1,000 pair of jeans.
Yep.
And it has something that makes it different. Maybe, I don't know, diamonds in the rivets of where the rivets would be on a pair of Levi's or something. But
it's the logo often too.
yeah. And but it is strange that we live in a time where people it's like we've lost so much of our identity, and it's becoming, we use the word globalization, but I think it's more than that. It has to do with what Jacques Ellul in his books on technology talks about how we live our lives under the effect of technology. So most of us are affected by the way information is spread. And that's what's happening with the younger generation. They're like, oh, I don't want to go on Facebook. That's old fashioned. So I'm going to be on TikTok.
Yeah.
Whereas people in the middle will be on Instagram, and so, and once, for instance, if all the older people in America started using TikTok, the other people would be, doing some other strange little news system, and someone would realize that and sell it to them. But it then creates this kind of weird abstraction of life. And it is impossible. I'm convinced it's impossible to communicate in depth on TikTok because of the constraints of the format.
For sure.
It's like recently they elongated the time, so you can now make longer TikToks than you used to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's almost like this. We live in a kind of hyper reality.
Exactly.
Right? Where there's that story you talk about, Argentinian reference. Borges has that story where it's like there's a map that's so perfect that it covers the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually the map starts to fray. and then we don't know where the map ends and the real world begins. And that was written maybe in the 40s or 50s, that story, and it's
Right.
so, and it's so enlightening of where we are now, and we've just gone completely down that direction where we have this reality that's completely constructed, and you have this identity that you portray online, and people live this, and now they have all these terms for it, like LARPing, like live action role play, where it's not anything tangible in the physical, in the real. It's completely virtual.
Right.
And
Well,
that's very disturbing.
the word aesthetic has taken on a certain tone. So you talk about internet aesthetics. So you talk about things like cottagecore or dark academia. These words which people talk about, they want to dress like they're in Harry Potter. They want to, but here's the weird thing. You don't see this on the streets. It's just people posing for videos or photos that they put online. And then in reality, they may not look like that at all because they want to blend in.
Yeah. Well, it's like having this play space that you're in as a child. And it's really connected with this whole infantilization of humanity. You can just be in this play space, essentially playing dress up, but not occupying your own actual reality. Anyway, this is deep stuff.
Oh, that's okay. It's not that simple. Here, I will lighten the mood a minute. So the Boston comedian Stephen Wright once said, you mentioned Borges, and he said, he talks in the slow tone of voice. He said,
Yeah, I remember.
I got a tattoo of myself. It's life size. And he always says things like that. It just takes you a minute. What? Wait, what? Huh? So, okay. Well, I'm going to play something else here. If anyone wants to come aboard, do. I've got about 32 minutes until midnight here. And if anyone wants to get a book or contribute to the channel, it would be really nice. It would be nice to get a good meal in Florence, a few of them. So if you'd like to contribute, feel free. The links are below, PayPal, GoFundMe. And let's see. I'm going to play. Okay, here's a weird thing that happened. This is, I was watching the music and dance troupe Erisioni practicing, and they were in the middle of doing a dagger dance where the guys were flashing these little blades around and such. I'm not going to play you the whole thing, but what happened was the lights went out. The electricity went off while they were doing it. So I just kept filming, and it was very interesting. And then at a certain point, you can see the sparks because the blades are really blades. They're not super sharp, but they're blades, and I've seen people cut with them before there. So this is a couple minutes. We'll be back. Here you go.
Why?
Okay, just a little section out of that. To me, what was so interesting is they just kept doing it, and it was like it didn't matter because they knew the steps so well. Well, thanks, James, for coming aboard. If anyone else would like to come on, I will be alone at the when it's midnight here in about 28 minutes. But I've got time. I'm here with Nico from Argentina. We just had James from Canada. I'm BYRNE, and I'm in Tbilisi, Georgia. Had one of my favorite puppeteers, Pascal Provost, just wished us a Happy New Year, and that's really great. It's nice to see people from different sections of the world. But if any of you would like to come aboard and just to talk about things, tell us what you're hoping for in the new year, how 2024 was for you. At the top of the chat, there is the link where there's the bright yellow highlighted words, the Anadromist, which is the channel you're watching this on. But I'm reacting as the Anadrome. So, okay. Any other thoughts there?
Yeah. No, I've been wondering. Recently, I came up to something. With all of these things that have been happening, there's been like a kind of like an internet reaction, maybe you could say, to modernity or however you want to call it. And I got very deep into that, and I had this idea about making maybe, I guess, a new style or something, in a way to get back to, I guess, a different way of living. And then I started watching things from the 70s. I had this idea about getting a jean jacket and adding, putting things on it, making embroidery and things like that. And then I found out they did the same thing in the 70s. And the punks did that too. I saw 2 punks on a bus some days ago. I had all kinds of drawings, and it was artisanal, homemade,
yes,
in that kind of. And then that kind of got me wondering of what's going on, because it almost seems like this has already happened before.
Hold on a second. Keep talking.
So basically, the first thing I saw was in architecture, when people were complaining about brutalism on the internet. And that kind of got me into this idea of that not all styles are the same.
No.
Beauty isn't just arbitrary. And from architecture, I jumped into fashion, kind of when I started seeing all the, 19th or 20th century European styles and comparing it to what people are using now. It's one thing to complain about, baggy pants and stuff like that, but some of the newer developments are beyond. Now it's this kind of slim fit jeans. It's hard to find normal jeans, and a lot of people, they're not in good shape, so they look like chickens. They have these little tiny legs, and then a huge ass. They look like it's in The Simpsons, and
I know the look. I know the look.
Hangs on to them, and they have this huge wallet sticking out with their huge phones sticking in their pockets. They look ridiculous. Yeah. So I was trying to find something that so I wouldn't look as ridiculous walking around the States.
Yeah, style has become a real problem for us. One of the things I do like about the punks, there's a lot of nihilism there, but I like the fact that DIY, do-it-yourself idea. And the hippies had a similar concept as well. I remember when I was younger, I was a little too young to be a hippie, but people would be always putting patches and things on their jeans, or if your jeans got the knees ripped, you would then patch over it. And I knew one guy had patch after patch after patch. He no longer had jeans; he just had a whole series of patches, which was quite cool. And but no, the problem is now. Let's say a person gets an idea for how someone should dress, how someone should act. Then you go online and you put it online, and suddenly it just gets immediately consumed,
Mm.
and then it becomes old. And that's what's happened in fashion. Is everything has just been put into a blender, and it's just like, and it's finished before it starts. That's one of the big problems with these internet aesthetics and fashion. I mean, a few years back, the Kardashians were convincing all the younger girls to get lip fillers and enlarged breasts and things happening with their ass and stuff. Now it's going the other way, and so many of those same people now have to go back to a cosmetic surgeon to get those things removed and to put new things or take them away. And I think there's an idea that people want something normal or natural, but the problem is this kind of communication, especially the really addictive version of online communication, that that sense that, oh, I have to respond to this now. Oh, this is coming on. Ooh, that's happening. And like I said, this is a thing that's feeding on all of us. We don't understand certain things. What is the effect of listening to voices all the time? What is the effect of imagery all the time? So,
one of the things about you mentioned before being a tourist. When I was a kid, we went to a beach town. The way Buenos Aires is set up, it's basically there are very close by tourist destination is the beach, and so
right.
That's basically what we do mostly for the most part. And we always went to the same place, and I think that worked out really well because when I was there, I got bored a lot, and I would wander around bored. But I know that place. I still remember that place. I love that place. And I don't remember all the other places I went on vacation to.
Yeah. Well, it is weird how things get emptied of meaning. And I think part of it is also that, when we were talking about travel at the beginning, when you talk about travel, people want to see more and more and more. And I hear people saying, oh, I've got to travel here and I've got to travel there. Americans are really bad at this. And we often go out into the world and we, the idea of going to one place and just stopping is, how can you do that? There's so much to see, but much isn't the same as quality. That's just a lot. And you can't see everything. And I know, there are YouTube people who've tried to see every country on earth. There's one guy I know, Drew Binsky, who has gone to every place. And there's a few other people who have gone pretty much to every place on earth. But what do you get if you go to every place on earth?
No.
Does anyone really want to listen to all of those stories? It's just would take too long. And all of the stories, most of them are introductory stories. That is to say, they don't tell you what it's like to be a Korean if you're visiting Korea, because you're there for a week or two if you're going to spend a while, and then you leave. So what do you really know? You don't know much at all. Meanwhile, back at home, in America, we have these things, these Walmarts, these huge stores, which kind of suck up all the business that used to be there in different small towns. So it empties out the reality of the place. And I think that is a serious problem for us.
Yeah.
But I think we've entered something in the time after the pandemic where, in a sense, things are fluid. Nobody can predict right now what the world, or almost anywhere in the world, is going to be like in 5 years or
Yeah.
at the end of 2025. You know, nobody knows, and because of that, that has a lot of people, that worries a lot of people. But at the same time, that opens doors, because when things are fluid, new things can develop. So
Yeah.
that's how I look at it. So I'm not a pessimist. But I'm not an optimist either. I'm just a realist, and I look at history and I say, oh, a lot of interesting things have happened during times of confusion. I mean, one could say that the Renaissance all happened during a time of confusion, and it started after the Black Death. So the Black Death was terrible, but it changed the landscape, new possibilities. Now things move much faster now. And so, I'm looking and I say, well, YouTube is still good. But the more I see, I mean, this happens all the time. I'll see some video I want to watch, and I start listening to it, and then I'll hear a weird way in which the person is emphasizing something, and I go, oh, it's another AI voice. And so will YouTube become nothing but AI? There was one person here who said, BYRNE, you should do, I've been getting recently people saying, BYRNE, you should do shorter stuff. BYRNE, you need a Patreon. I am thinking about the Patreon, but I could get more. If my goal was to make a lot of money, I could figure out a way to do that, but that's not my goal. My goal is to communicate. And the way I look at it is this: if one person gets something out of what I'm saying, that's good. I've communicated. If they can, and I know that more than one have, and I get people who tell me things that they're doing this because they were listening to me. And I go, well, there you are. That's the good part. As long as, I have to be responsible for what I say. We all have to be responsible for what I say, which means we all have to ask, why am I doing X? This weird visual addictive behavior. Why am I doing that? We all have to ask those questions. So I have to ask, I hope what I'm saying is truthful, because that's what I'm trying to do. Well, Nico, I'm going to cut you off here because I'm going to get ready the last 15 minutes here for the New Year's, and I've appreciated you being here. What's Feliz? What's Happy New Year?
Feliz Año Nuevo.
Feliz Año
Nuevo.
Nuevo. No, yeah, of course, Nuevo. So, okay. Well, we will stay in touch. I appreciate. What's funny is I saw your name, Aqueducts or something like that. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And in my mind, reading your things, I thought you were much older. I thought I was dealing with someone who was in their 50s or something like that. So it's good to see your face, put some reality to it. And okay. Well, take care. And now I'm going to go on and blab about some stuff, and then we'll see you in the new year here in Tbilisi, Georgia. Hasta luego.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me play a little something while I'm deciding which way to go. Okay. Here is an interesting piece of animation, and this was this is cutout animation, silhouette animation. Basically what it is paper or something like black paper or black board, black leather, and it is made into a movie by filming frame after frame. A bit like a cartoon, but much closer to puppetry or puppet animation. And it has joints and stuff like that. And this is from, I've got two sections here, but we'll watch one now. Maybe we'll watch another one later. And this is from The Adventures of Prince Ahmed. I think this is from 1926. It is the first feature-length animation film. And it's from Germany, and it was made by Lotte Reiniger. So A little of this. We'll be right back. Well, there you have it. Lotte Reiniger's Adventures of Prince Ahmed, kind of an Arabian Nights sort of tale. And I've got another 2-minute section from that I might play a little later. And it is now about 11 minutes until midnight here in Tbilisi. It is 11:49. And just to let you know, at midnight, what I do after wishing everyone a Happy New Year is I always do this little ritual. And it's just something. You have to have something to mark things. And what I do is I have, I like to eat one thing I've never eaten before and drink one thing I've never drunk before. And so today I have cheese, and this is from the Netherlands, but it's got truffles in it. It's called black, let's see if I can get this right. Hold on. It's hard to do two things at once here. Yeah, there it is. Black truffle. So I look forward to eating some of that. And then the weirdest thing is what I'm going to be drinking. It's this weird spirit, as it's called, distilled walnuts. I have no idea what this will taste like. Tikhari. That's the company. But walnuts. And this is made in Georgia, where walnuts are very important to the diet here. And so, yeah. So, let's see. What was my 2024 like? It was actually a very interesting year. It started off last year, me asking to try to get money to go to Alaska, which I did get, and I was very grateful for that, only to find out that I was $13,000 short because someone quoted me the wrong price here in Georgia. So I had already made up my mind to go. I'd already bought my airplane tickets. I had already told people I was coming. So I went there and I took as much money as I could afford. I paid 2 years storage fees, which was several $1,000s. I then sent back about 30 boxes of books, and my journals and photographs and all my puppet library came here. And that took about 2 months to get here, and just crazy. I've gone through all of this stuff in my library diaries videos. You can look that up. And by the way, if you're one of the people who wanted a certain amount of Georgian music and that you haven't gotten it yet, I haven't forgotten you. I've just been really, really distracted since I got back. And in fact, if you look up here, you will see I have the same writing from last year because I can't take it down until I send those things. So I am remembering you. But, oh, thank you, Meow. I know who you are. Happy New Year in the UK, in London. So, yeah. So when I returned, unfortunately, on my way back, I decided to stop in Europe and see some puppet friends and visit some people at the, part of Paul van der Klee's Estuary group in London. Also, I spent some time with some people, but unfortunately in London, probably on the metro, or rather the tube, the subway, I picked up some really horrifying illness. I have picked up some really horrifying illnesses on mass transit in Paris twice and London once. And it went into full effect when I arrived in Belgium, in Brussels. Fortunately, I had a place to stay for free there. And I did spend one day watching a puppet play. And then the next day, I was just completely wiped out. Could hardly move, had a terrible fever. Fortunately, like I said, I was all right. I was with friends. But then I recovered enough to go down and stay in a little place in France where I had friends who are wood carvers and puppet carvers out in the countryside. All of this I go into in the library diaries. And then I eventually got here where I got sick again because I had gotten so weakened. Part of it was just arriving in Alaska at the wrong time. And you know, the truth is I'm not getting any older. I'm going to be 70 years old this year. I'm in my 70th year now. I will be completing it in July. And hey, Richard, good to oh, what is that? Is that Swedish? You look like you have a Swedish last name there. Or is that Norwegian? But then throughout the summer, I decided to get busy making more videos, which has been part of what has been distracting me. And I opened up this other channel, but it didn't provide any more income. I'm not going to go into all of that, but that's where I am. But in the summer, while I still felt a bit flush, I decided to I had to complete. Well, okay. I lost my permit for a 5-year residency because I'm no longer working here, nor do I have enough money to buy a house here, which is one way you can stay. But you can stay here for 365 days, step out of the country, step back in, and then stay for another 365 days. So I am basically going to step out of the country, and I'm going to Florence. And I decided that in the summer. So I found cheap tickets, cheap place to stay. I'm doing well that way, but now things are tighter. If someone had said to me a month ago, are you going to go to Florence? If I would have said, no, I don't think I can afford it. But since I'm going, I'm going. And meanwhile, I've had a lot of very interesting conversations with friends here. I've had people visiting. I had one person, Brandon, come from the outside world to visit here. And another person, my friend Zimba from Alaska, came here. Yeah, his name, well, he wasn't born with the name Zimba. He was here. I've had other people. I've met new people here. There's an Italian man and his Italian-American wife who have 3 children, and they decided to move here. So I've met new friends, it's been a very good time, and I've been getting a lot of stuff done. And I hope what I'm doing on the channels is worth something to you all. What is going on here? Oh, someone decided, oh, thank you, Nicholas, and a little bit of extra there from him. Thank you for the contribution to help me get a meal in in Florence. That is one thing. It would be nice. I had to spend another couple $100 just for all the tickets for all the museums, but you know, it should be great. And it's just like I can't worry about. You don't worry about things. You just do them. You know, and that's how things go. So, I am hoping I will be able to afford a few of the really nicer meals there. And if you'd like to help, you can support the channel. The links are down below. Also, if you want a puppet book, $25 will get you that, and that's supporting the channel as well. So just to remind you. Well, it's 3 minutes until midnight. I am about so yeah, someone was saying, what is it, one of those cheap houses that the government offers? And yeah, although now I'm seeing that the Italians are saying essentially, what's going on here? Oh, I see. The Italians are saying, oh, I see what I did. The Italians are saying it may have been a mistake to sell these houses super cheap, but I haven't gone into all of that. And the super cheap houses aren't in Florence. You can be sure of that. They're out in the countryside. And I'm sure they would much prefer younger people with a family than someone like myself going there. Okay, what are we doing here? Oh, do I have any more? Oh, hold on a minute. Let's see if I can get some seconds here. Opening date and time preferences. I can hear fireworks going off. The Georgians never wait. They don't wait till midnight like they do in some places. They just start blowing it off an hour ahead of time. And so I hear a lot of stuff. I'm fairly soundproof in my my room, but nevertheless, I hear it going on outside. And we're getting close. Ah, 2024. I think 2024 was a pretty interesting year. And I think a lot changed this year. We don't know what it all means yet. And that's what 2025 is going to be about. I mean, things have been changing around the world. There's been protesting here, protesting all over. Of course, there's the huge election in America with Trump. There's, you know, things going on in the UK, things going on in just all over. It's just been crazy. And, you know, so unfortunately, I don't have a second hand. And so I can't count. I probably do. Wait, this. Hold on a minute. No, this doesn't have a second hand either. I'm allergic to second hands. Well, Happy New Year, everyone, from Tbilisi, Georgia. I'm going to stick around a little while longer. I'm going to tell you how this food and liquid tastes. But I appreciate all the people who have been watching my videos. I don't have a big channel, but I have people that I like. You guys, I get very few people who make rude comments. I get very few people who, you guys do a great job. So, as the Georgians say, Gilisat Ahal Tzelz. Happy birthday. Happy birthday. No, it is. Happy New Year's. And thank you for being with us. So, yes, up go the fireworks. Yeah, I don't know if you can hear them. I can't open the windows because there's just too much stuff blocking them. But okay, so here it is. So first, okay, let's have a little drink first. This is a little shot glass, and this is fermented walnuts, or not fermented, but distilled walnuts. And let's see how it tastes. First, okay. I get that. It's not going to be sweet. Well, I'm not going to be having a lot of those. It is essentially a variation on what the Georgians call cha-cha, which is a kind of paint thinner. I do taste a little bit of walnut in there, but you know, I don't think walnut probably makes the best version, but it's more of an aftertaste than a primary taste. So there you are. And then let's try a little bit of this cheese here. I've cut a little section, let it be at room temperature for a while. You do know cheese has to be at room temperature or else you're kind of wasting it. Yeah, I taste the truffles. It's black truffle, but it's mixed in very much, so it looks white. It's essentially a Gouda with truffles. Not bad. So, let me play a little something for you while I'm finishing chewing here. This is a piece on a piano. It's a Bach piece. I'm not sure exactly which one because I can't quite read it all. Do you hear that? Do you hear explosions behind me? This is a short 3-minute Bach piano piece played by a friend of mine, Eteri Tsipurishvili. She has a tough last name. Anyway, she just goes by Eto, and this is Eto playing the piano. I'll be back for a few more minutes afterwards, so stick around. My very good friend Eto playing the piano. That doesn't really show you what she really does. There are longer pieces where she has brought me to the point of tears because she is so good, and I feel honored to know her. But I will say this cheese was great. I had another piece and then a little bit more of this stuff. And I'm getting the walnut quality to it. They pair very well. So, well, I'm not going to stick around too much longer. Does anyone have any more questions or thoughts in the comments chat section here? I will be taking off soon, but time for a few last minute thoughts, and we'll take it from there. Meanwhile, what I'm looking forward to in 2025 is that I'm looking forward to, well, first of all, going to Florence and seeing what there is to learn in my trip. Secondly, my birthday is coming up in July, and I'm going to invite some of my best friends here. But I'm also having a second gathering in Georgia, and I know at least a couple people who will be coming. So there's room for people to start thinking. I'm going to make an official announcement about this when I get back from Florence. But last time I had 6 people come. We had an amazing time. And this time we're in the summer rather than the fall. So, and I did this specifically because it's my 70th birthday, and we're going to have a very special gathering and party with everyone, Georgian style. But also, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the mountains in the middle of the summer, which is very cool and a really great place to be. But also in Tbilisi, on both sides of my birthday, there is a big regional folk music festival for traditional Georgian music. And I only went to this for the first time this year. And I just, as soon as I was there, I said, oh no, why have I not been coming to this? And then I said, this would be good for the people who can't come during the fall. Now, one thing is all of the cultural events aren't happening so much, but between the music festival and going up to the mountains, I think we can have a good 8-day gathering in Georgia, number 2. So think about that. And let's see, what have we got here? At some point, what is that name? Ixnan Laklan would like to hear my thoughts on Frank Zappa, which is interesting because I've been watching Andy Edwards' channel, and he is a drummer who's drummed with people like Robert Plant from Led Zeppelin. And he talks about Zappa a lot, and he's caused me to look at Zappa a bit more. So maybe sometime I'll work up. Now, what I did is I know Zappa, the early albums, and then there's a lot of other stuff in the middle. But then I went and got his classical music, which I thought was very interesting, very much in line with the primitive American classical music of people like Charles Ives and Moondog. This guy used to compose stuff standing on the street corners of New York and such like that. Zappa's a very interesting character. My estimation of him has gone up a bit. Interested in the new direction for art going forward. I'm going to be watching the Rook. Yeah, Nico, watch those Rookmacher lectures because he was way ahead, still is, because he talks about reality and art and how the need for us to bring reality back into art, which it has not had yet. I think there are people who keep trying. One of the things I learned in New York City, and I worked in the art world for 3 solid years, is that sometimes the artists are making very interesting things, and you go into their studios and you look around and go, wow, this is amazing. And then they take their work of art and they put it on a white wall, and it's abstracted and turned into just one more thing to hang on a white wall. Or as Eric Bogosian said, it used to be that hunters would go and shoot a rhinoceros and put the rhinoceros head on the wall, or a Cape buffalo head on the wall. Now they hang art on the wall, because it takes the power out of it by doing it in that certain kind of a way. So the question is how to bring art back into all of life. But Nico, we can talk about that more. Feel free to get in touch with me at reckoningmotions at yahoo.com. And and anyone else who's interested in talking about art and such. Let's see. Yeah, I've watched. I've got a video, DVD of the Zappa documentary. I am not much of one for streaming because I'm seeing that it is destroying us, quite frankly. Convenience does not lead to life. Convenience leads to death, unfortunately. Too much convenience is not good. A little bit is okay, but too much is not good. So I've really stepped away from streaming, except watching stuff on YouTube. But that's more for the content, whatever that means. It means nothing practically. But no, I get DVDs and Blu-rays here, and I watch things. So my feeling was last year I just did a video which is over on the Anadrome about horror films in the year 2024, and I consider it one of the best years there ever was for horror films, because we are confused, and in fact there are very few things bringing people together, but horror films are. Interesting. So anyway, any last thoughts before I get out of here? This is your chance. Speak now. I'm waiting. While I'm waiting, I'm going to play one more song or something here. What do we got? Oh, here is a puppet show from Tbilisi. This is from some video images that I took back in the year 2018. And this is about the history of Georgia. What's really fascinating about this is their use of fire.
Why? Nana. Facciamo curti Usmane.
So there you are, a little bit of Georgian history done through puppetry. Well, I think that's about it. I don't see any new questions or anything, so I just wanted to tell you Happy New Year's, and may 2025 be a meaningful year for you, where you find out, where you attempt new things, whether in art or culture, or whether in intellectually challenging yourself, or in learning to talk to people who think differently than you. Do not give in to despair. Use the fact that this is a fluid time to create something new. New things are possible now that weren't possible 5 years ago. So do that. Okay. So, Droebit. We will meet again. Nakwamdis, farewell from Georgia and Tbilisi. May your New Year's be good wherever you are.